Did you enjoy my interpretive dance? Hello.
I did enjoy your interpretive dance. You stopped dancing in time this time, unlike usual, which is the best part.
Correct, I did, yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jessica, and this
I'm
over
Kate.
here is Kate.
Hello.
And today we are going to have a chat about prologues. If you should have them, if you like them, do you skip over them? What's their purpose? Do they have a purpose? While also discussing the fact that I'm a mess right now. Woo!
Woo!
Technically, we pushed back a week because Texas was a hot mess.
It was Texas's turn. Now it's your turn.
And Kate still wasn't done reading the book anyway, so it's fine. It's great. Grape. My shelves are currently empty because I've completely reorganized my office. So I'm in the middle of reorganizing my office. So it looks, hold on, you're going to get drunk. It's fine. A little something like this right now. So hence the hot mess part of my title. So let's see who all's here. Who do we need to say hi to? I am literally like standing at on a TV tray with a footstool as my seat and on my laptop, and I don't have a mouse and I don't have my keyboard, and so this is just
Hot Mess Express.
Hot Mess Express. So Mercurial Thrills is here. Hello. Lucy is here, and she's discussing the Worldwide Write-A-thon, which is awesome. We're excited to have you, Lucy. Who else is here? JC is here. Michael's here. Cheryl's here. Hello, Cheryl.
Woo.
Was planning on reading Strange the Dreamer, but then life got in the way. I mean, fair enough.
Understandable.
Juniper's here. Hello. Miguel is here. Hello.
Oh.
And Regina. You
Hi,
seen
Regina.
that? Did you see that Priory of the Orange Tree? Is that where you were?
I did, yeah. I'd heard good things, but I haven't read it myself.
Becca's here on her craft channel.
Heck yes, Becca. Look at that TARDIS outfit.
Rocking that TARDIS outfit. We know Grape's here because I've already yelled at her. Let's see. Anna's here. Hello, Anna.
Need you to highlight Benjamin's comment. Yes.
I mean, it's a good play on words.
Against log.
I need an office. I mean, I have an office, but it's scary. Miller Nature's here. I think that's everybody. Everybody talking to everybody. I think that's it. No, go away. No. Buttons. I'm not used to using a trackpad on a laptop, so it's just a mess. Oh, look, Laura's here too. Hello, Laura.
Hi, Laura.
I click on people and then it does the thing, and then the thing that it does. Anna says, I'm reading Tim Hickson's book right now, and he has a really good section on prologues that made me understand their function so much better. I think I'm prologue.
I will have to look that up. You will have to, I need to know what the purpose is. Why?
JC says, I feel like if the person took the time to write the prologue, then I could at least take the time to read it. I usually find that they were necessary in the end.
Well, let me tell you. So, first off, this whole thing started because Jessica and I chose Strange the Dreamer as our book club pick. Turns out there's a prologue, and Miss Jess, like always, read it before I did. And she said, hey, I know you don't like prologues. I'm hit or miss with them. And she's like, I want you to skip the prologue this time. So this is Jessica's brainchild. She's like, you're going to skip the prologue and then come back, read it at the end, and we're going to discuss. So let me just say, not true for Strange the Dreamer. Not necessary.
Not necessary.
In fact,
it's a huge spoiler.
yes.
Some would argue it's not a spoiler because the author wouldn't tell you that if they didn't want you to know. But I feel like in a book that moves so slowly and has so few plot points, that to give away one of the major ones in the first 6 pages is a disservice to the rest of the book.
It is such a disservice, which we'll get into it more when we talk about the book part and not just prologues, but I just...
I love a good epilogue. And though it's not Kate's favorite, Cassie Clare epilogues always make me sob, like every time. So, I mean, every time.
Here's the thing, I do always read epilogues though. I don't see them as often, but I always read them versus prologues where I'm like, it's hit or miss. If it's short enough, I'll read the prologue, or if it's like immediately interesting, but usually I just skip it because it feels like there's a lot of world building and I don't understand the characters, and I tend to read for the characters and their journey. So to just have an info dump, which is what it feels like to me, in the prologue, I'm like, none of this is relevant to me until I know the characters and like what's happening. So
no, don't put that user in timeout. Why would you do that? Laura says that she thought that prologues were like the forward and a word from the author, so I would skip them and just wanted to get to chapter 1. Same. Like when I was a kid, absolutely. Juniper just realized a few months ago that people don't read prologues.
Well, okay, I went to my community tab and I took a poll this morning, 8 hours ago, and I asked people how often they skip prologues, or if they do. I asked, do you read prologues? And 81% of people do read prologues, but there are a collective 17% of us that sometimes skip or don't read the prologues ever. Fair. So it's still a lot of people that read the prologue.
Well, and we've discussed before, like, Becca does chapter 0.
Which is genius. I love it. Because I will read the chapter 0.
Well, I feel like it's the best of both worlds, because people who skip a prologue are going to read it, and people who, like that buildup are going to get it. So it works.
We're going to have to talk about Strange the Dreamer again, which we will at the end, but like, I'm just going to throw this out now. It felt like chapter 1 was a prologue in itself. So I was so confused what the prologue could have been. So I think you can still do it in a chapter format. Like, I get the point is it's not told in this style. Like, usually it's a stylistic change, the prologue to the actual meat of the story. But anyways, I have thoughts. I have feelings. Chapter 9. I would read a book that started that way, though. That would hook me. I'd be like, okay.
I think it's oh my gosh, I'll never remember what it's Marissa Meyer. I think it's Renegades, the like superhero one. It has a very long prologue, but it's done in like newspaper clippings and like in the format of like a history textbook, because it's our world but with like a huge like 100-year change. And so they're giving you like the information of what that big pivotal change was, because without that you wouldn't be able to know what was happening in the story. It's not intended to be a mystery. So like that one I liked, but a lot of prologues that are really long that are info dumpy I don't like.
Yeah. Well, and I've read, I feel like contemporaries will often, I've had several where it'll be like a newspaper clipping, or it'll be something that acts as a pseudo prologue, or like I had read One by One by Ruth Royer, which was a thriller, and it was like a newspaper summary, or like a summary of the company that we're going to be following as its sort of pseudo prologue. So you can do it in interesting and different ways. But honestly, I've read some of those and been like, I could have done without this. Like,
Kate and I were just talking about this. I just finished The Name of the Star by Maureen Johnson, and it does technically have a prologue, and it is like the book is based off of modern day someone reenacting the Jack the Ripper murders, And so the prologue is just like a random offshoot character finding the first body. And it's just a couple pages. Like that kind of a setup for a prologue, I can absolutely get behind. Because we're not with a character that's like a main character that we're going to be with the whole book. But they want to give it like this ominous tone.
Well, and it feels very fitting for that sort of genre almost too, because we're so used to TV where if like those police procedurals and stuff, they often have some rando either being murdered or stumbling across a body. And then we don't follow that person, if at all, other than like a quick interview with the cop or detective or something. And then it's a different thing. So I think we're also used to that format. I will say I would have read the Strange the Dreamer one because it was only 3 pages. A lot of prologues depend, I'll flick through it real quick. And if it looks like it's too long and that quick flick through is a lot of world building, I'm like, and that's when I skip. So do we want to discuss the purpose of the prologue? Because I want to know how many people have written a prologue before and also what they think the purpose is. Because I am curious. Benjamin. Again, I would read that.
Michael and Miguel both say that they tend to read prologues. Lucy said the book that she's writing, the prologue, is like an epilogue. It's the main character telling her story, which is the book to her children.
See, that setup's kind of interesting to me.
I like those.
Yeah, I do too.
Quick glimpses into the character in only a couple of pages. Fair. Though the one for Strange the Dreamer could technically be a glimpse into the character and only a couple of
really, that's what I would have read that one and I would have been mad.
I am mad.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Following the box, not
that's
the
true.
one. So true.
I love epilogues. I'll read them every time. So
I love epilogues.
Yeah, it's just I don't know what to tell you.
Miller says that I have written prologues, but I think they're very difficult to do right. And I absolutely agree. I think getting them right is the hard part. And I think I've written a prologue for my adult high fantasy, but I've also rewritten the beginning like 10 times and scrapped that prologue and rewritten another 10 times. So, you know, like...
For those of y'all who have, for those of y'all that have written a prologue, did you write it before you wrote the rest of the novel, or did you write it after you'd written
parts or
parts of the novel? Yeah, I'm curious because, like, with the Strange the Dreamer example, which again we'll talk about, but it definitely felt as if she wrote that after she'd written the whole novel or the scene. Like, it was very clearly a just slightly rewritten version of what we would ultimately read. So it was foreshadowing to the end of the story in an attempt to draw in readers, though nobody except me has read it.
I feel like that's kind of what Strange the Dreamer was trying to do, but it wasn't foreshadowing. It was just straight up telling you what was going to happen.
I was going to say, I think if it can be done well, that would be cool. But yes, Strange the Dreamer tried that and just outwardly told you, like, you knew,
Yes. Needs to have a narrative distance from the story. Makes sense. I mean, fair. And Kate and I are on the exact opposite boat. Like, had we read that and got one of the 6 plot points, I would have been pissed.
Yeah. I was so shocked when I read what the prologue ultimately was, or what the ending was, that the prologue ultimately would have alluded to. I was like, oh, what a twist. I was so excited because I had no idea because I didn't read the prologue. And so it felt like the whole weight of that was very cool to me. Gosh, so many feelings. A total. Okay, so I think this is interesting, Hilla, because I've noticed that a lot of prologues are tonally different from the story. Do you mean in terms of like writing style, like stylistically the tone, or do you mean in like what I can expect from the plot almost? Like this story is about death, or this story is about this, and that's what the prologue's like kind of tonally promising? I don't know. Okay. Have to write sequentially, yeah.
Things we know about you.
That's right. Again, I wouldn't skip short prologues. Yep.
Fair. Depends on the story. Sometimes first, most, and
Often it's after. Interesting.
English. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Planning stories is good for you.
Well, I wonder how many people think of the prologue first. Like for me, the way I get my story ideas is often basically what ends up being the first chapter. Sometimes it'll be like chapter 2, or sometimes it's just before the first chapter, but usually it's like the opening of the story. I wonder for how many people who write prologues, if the prologue's the first thing they get.
I mean, I have a dark fantasy idea that pretty much the only plot thread that I have is the epilogue and the prologue.
That is so interesting.
I haven't figured out how to do the middle part yet, like
Right.
the whole book.
The story.
I've got a prologue. I've got an epilogue that will technically take place at the same time. Like you'll have the prologue that will like cut off, and then you'll get the like go back in time, get the whole story, and then get the end of the prologue as the epilogue. But I have to figure out the whole middle part.
That sounds very intriguing.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay. Like, I want to know. I have questions.
You can have the spoilers. You can help me figure out the middle.
Perfect.
I'll name a character for you. You help me figure out the middle.
An excellent trade.
Oh, I like to write one before, even if I know I'm going to be pretty much scrap it. I think that's one thing too. A lot of people will write a prologue knowing that they'll never actually put it into the book.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's all you get, Michael. Just Jessica shaking your head.
Lucy also writes in chronological order. One be a prologue because it skips 6 years.
Oh, because the first inciting incident happened today. I feel like that makes sense to me, that would be chapter 1 then.
That would be what Becca would make a chapter 0.
0? But I understand that struggle. That does make sense, though. I don't mind a time jump in from first chapter to second, or even like first to second to third, honestly. Like, that doesn't really bother me. They do sometimes. That's why I was confused about Strange the Dreamer, because there's a time jump from chapter 1 to chapter 2. And I'm like, what the F could the prologue be? Since I tend to think of the prologues as for you time jump, but that's not what it was at all. But
I had I read a book earlier this year, and I won't say what it is because if I talk about it and this thing, it'll be a spoiler. But like, it's like a murder mystery, and it might have been last year I read it. I don't even know. But it's like a murder mystery, and it tells you on the flap copy, which I didn't read. Someone recommended the book to me, so I read it. But it tells you that like all of these people are like coming up dead. And the first chapter is from a point of view of a character that dies at the end of the first chapter. And then the second chapter starts the point of view of the main character. And it threw me for a loop, man. And I was like, had I read the synopsis, it wouldn't have.
You would have known. I
would have known. But because I didn't, I was like, what the hell just happened? They just killed the main character in the first chapter. What is happening? That's not what happened at all. But so it's kind of the same thing. Like, would you write that as a prologue because it's not actually your main character, or do you just write it as chapter 1 so people actually read it?
I mean, so that 80% of the people read. That's really
The other
interesting.
17% of people will read it.
Yeah, I do wonder. I feel like, and I don't have a good example off the top of my head, but I have read books before where not the back cover, but the inside flap actually felt like it spoiled the book for me. Have you ever had that happen? Where I was like, oh, this would have been cool to learn as I read versus right here, right now.
What I have been able to do with BookTube, and it's something that a lot of other people have talked about doing,
Mm.
is like if someone describes a book to me and like they're selling a book to me and I'm like, that sounds cool, I'll read it and I will not pick, especially mysteries. I won't read the flap copy at all.
Okay. Yeah, because that it does tend to be mysteries and thrillers that seem to give it away a little too much.
Prologues from the killer's perspective.
Let me tell you though, JC Carpenter, because I love JD Robb and Nora Roberts as a whole, I do read her prologues. Like there are certain authors, like I know someone on the comment of that poll talked about Brandon Sanderson. I do read Brandon Sanderson's prologues, and I'll say that his, even though they were longer, did seem to tie into the world, and I was ultimately glad I read them. There's certain authors that is like either a trust has been built up or people have recommended and told me that I will still be willing to read them. So it's not a hard and fast rule. I'm a sometimes. Sometimes I skip the prologue. The middle's the hard part.
I just skipped like 8 comments to go to that. Going back now.
We need twinning.
If you start with the farm boy and then explode the planet at the end, would you feel misled without a prologue? I mean, it's a good point.
See, but I feel like nothing exists in that way that I don't have a trailer or the back cover copy of the book anymore. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like I would still know. Like that's why we have all the marketing stuff, is to give us an idea of like, this is a space book or this is a fantasy and whatever, you know?
Well, and I feel like those of us who use BookTube to help us find books don't really need the description. And so I've definitely heard people, that could be a whole other discussion. Synopses on book covers. Somebody write that down.
Synopsis on book. I just, we'll loop back around, Jessica. We have the time.
I once wrote a prologue and an epilogue, but then forgot to write the book itself. I mean, that's where I sit. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Sorry, this is a total side tangent, but there's people on like the commentary portion of YouTube where they do like TV shows and stuff, and they've been doing the watch the first episode and the last episode of a thing. That's what that feels like. Wouldn't it be so funny to show someone the prologue and then the epilogue and be like, just guess what happened? Like, no, just me. Okay, it's fine.
No, I'm thinking about like TV shows that I enjoy and like having watched the first and last episode.
I watched so Brooke recommended this YouTuber, Dylan is in Trouble, who I've been watching for like a year now since she recommended it, but he did it with the Vampire Diaries. And Jess, you can't watch it. But I need Becca to those of y'all that have watched the Vampire Diaries should watch that video. It's funny.
Well, because that's my thing too, is like I feel like if I watch the first episode and then watch the last episode to like get my real reaction of it, I wouldn't want to go back and watch them in between because then it would be ruined.
He joked that it would, he's like, I don't need the middle. I just need the first and last episodes. But I feel like that's not true. He's also doing it with Gossip Girl, which I never watched that show, but I want to watch his version of it. Okay, I might read Prologues, but I won't read Flaps. Yeah. It gives a lot away, or it can give a lot away.
Yeah. Forget what's written in the flap. I mean, fair.
That's also, yeah.
Yeah. I hate when books described with amazing twists. That is a spoiler. Anyone else writing a prologue from their villain's point of view? I feel like the Women's Murder Club series does that too, by James Patterson. I think. It's been so long since I've read one. I gave up on them after like book 18. This is a space book is going to be on the front cover of my next sci-fi book.
It should, Benjamin. I would like 0.1% of the royalties on that.
The last few pages of a book before the rest. There are people that do that.
Yeah, and there are. I think I have had a couple of times in my life, literally only like 2, when it's usually when the tension is so much, or I'm so frustrated with a character that I've decided to flip to the back and just see. It's only been twice. I wish I could remember what books they were, but usually it came from frustration that I did that. Also, Jessica's gone. It is time to party. And yet I can hear her, so she's not gone.
I'm still here.
Okay.
I was just standing up to walk away. Didn't feel like anybody needed to see my ass at this angle that we're at. It's like right at crotch region. I didn't feel like anybody needed to see that.
I feel like that's fine.
I feel like that y'all would appreciate that. I thought it was on this book, but I think it's on a different cover because we're talking about flaps and things that you shouldn't do. And, you know, so I just read The Survivors by Jane Harper.
Oh.
In a different version of this book, not this version, a different one. At the top, it is actually blurbed by AJ Finn, who is like, there's all that drama of like him. The Woman in the Window is the book, and I'm pretty sure, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't he the author that like faked having cancer and like ran a... Let me double check.
I don't know enough about booktube drama, honestly. Like, the extent of it is what I watch about on YouTube. I'm like, oh, interesting. Or book drama, not booktube drama.
Let's see. Yeah, there's like a huge scandal about it, and he says that it's due to him having bipolar disorder. Like, there's a whole thing where he's like, he's tried to come back around. But my point is that this book was published this month in the United States. It was published in Australia in like September of last year. But that drama's been going on for like over a year. Why is that the person that you would have blurb your book? Like, why? Why is that the person whose name you decided to put on the front of your book?
That's so interesting because I know that like when I've talked to trad pup authors before, the actual process of getting someone to blurb your book can be kind of complicated and hard. And you're reaching out to contacts that sometimes you don't even necessarily have yet if it's your first book. But of course, even once you get those blurbs, the publisher still has to okay that if it's on the front cover. I'm so surprised that I mean, I guess I'm not surprised, honestly. Publishers are out here doing all sorts of shit. But like,
I mean, I think that he's also an Australian author and she's an Australian author. So like, that maybe it's just like they're the two
popular there.
I don't know. But I feel like even if what he did was a symptom of his bipolar disorder and that's an actual thing that he has, I'm with the, like, that's not the person I'm putting on the front of my book. I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
It's not happening. So just like in the random, like we're talking about things that, why do we do this on our book? That was a thing that
all over the place here. Right. Welcome to Authortube Chats.
I don't know what to do with you, Lucy.
Do you remember? Because I'm pretty sure I've done that before when I'm like looking at books in a bookstore back when that was more readily a thing. And sometimes if I kind of knew that I wasn't going to necessarily buy it or I was like really on the fence, I'd flip to the back and read the last little bit. But I don't think I ever truly remembered once I started the book. It was more a decision point of like, I'll buy this.
No, I have never done that. Never.
These are my terrible, like, book confessions.
I have at times, because of my depression and like just the way that things can be triggered. Like if I'm reading a book and there's like a character that I'm afraid is going to die, and I know someone that has read the book, I'm gonna be like, look, I'm in a mood and I want to finish this book, but you just need to tell me now if I should or should not finish this book. You don't tell me what happens, but like, should I put it down for a few days or not? I've definitely done that before, but I've never been like, I'm gonna read the last chapter and I haven't even started the book yet.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate that part about Goodreads so much, that they are including trigger warnings and stuff in certain reviews. Because I'm like, thank goodness. Some of the stuff I just personally don't want to read and would be triggering at some level for me. And I'm like, and I'll start reading it and you have a sense where you're like, I don't know that this is going to be healthy for me. And then I'll go and I'll look up reviews and actually like fully spoil myself and just see. And I'll still read it if it's not there, but it's like, I need to know.
I try to warn people about things in my reviews, but I don't know enough about trigger warnings to really, but I will if it's something that I know people should look into, especially if it's something that I know that Melanie has a review for, I'll be like, hey, go check out Melanie's review, because she's always got like an extensive list of trigger warnings. She's like one of the top 3 reviewers on Goodreads. Like, everybody knows who she is, so it's not like a huge thing. Just like, go check out Melanie's review, look at trigger warnings, because it's a list and I don't know enough about it to really list them. Like, let me send you to somebody who knows more than I do, because this is not my area of expertise. I'm just I liked it or I didn't like it.
Yeah. Let me tell you though, you're great for that. I wish there were more people who would be so willing to do that. Be like, look at this person who's done all this awesome work. Go check out them. Like, they know. I don't know.
They know more than I am not an expert on everything, and I can't be an expert on everything. So,
yeah,
but I know someone who does. Yeah. So let's go talk to them.
Yeah.
Hey, click. I clicked you. I do skip ahead sometimes or read the last couple of pages to find out how something will end. I love a good spoiler. If anything, spoilers will make me read it even more. I mean, I'm not saying I don't reread books. I'm not saying that a spoiler will like ruin a book for me, but I hate it when the author spoils it for me in the prologue. Why are you in ways? I turned you off.
I think it's like, I don't want to know if there are big twists. I don't want to know what the exact twist is. That's usually how I feel about it. And in Strange the Dreamer, you know what one of the twists is. That's upsetting.
Somebody said, I just seen it. Amanda said that she looks up parts of horror movies. I do that too. But that's mostly because jump scares don't bother me, but I'm not a big gory person.
And you need to know
read it. I can't see it. Reading gore, blood and guts, whatever, doesn't bother me. But seeing it, even though I know it's not real, not my favorite thing. Though I have, because I follow Stefan on Instagram, have become much more used to it.
Yeah, following him, you know what you're gonna get. It's random.
I'm much more used to like the slaughter of slaughter. Like, you're just like, there's like a decapitated head, and you're like, all right, well, continuing on. So I've gotten more used to it, but especially like in my teens, it was not like, we went and watched when we were in high school. We're vaguely the same age, except not really. I was in high school. You were probably in middle school. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre that came out in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
It made me so sick that one of the guys had to drive me home. Like, I couldn't even drive myself home. Like, I was nauseous and throwing up in the movie theater.
I never actually watched that. I was like, oh, I'll pass.
I didn't know it was a thing I didn't like until then. Like, that was like the first time that I was like going to go watch something like that. Like, I had just got my license. Like, it was me and a bunch of friends from school, and it didn't work.
Did not sit right at all. Yeah. Oh gosh.
I'm sure I'll see it eventually. And want to vomit. Thank you. Yes, I have seen that, which is great because I want to know that. I want to know if the dog dies.
I just had this conversation with my parents, no joke, where my parents had watched some movie together. and the dog dies in the movie. And my mom was pissed because if she'd known the dog was going to die, she wouldn't have watched it. And my dad's like, when they were debating back and forth, and I was like, no, I'm right there too. If the dog's going to die, I do not want to watch that movie. I don't care how good the movie is. I don't want to watch the dog die. Like, that's just not, I don't need that heart. I don't need you to pull on my heart like that. It also always feels like a little bit like you're just trying to punch me when I'm down. I just don't like it.
It's like every country song ever. Like not only did his truck break down and his girl leave him, but his dog died too, in case you're wondering.
Exactly. I don't want to be a country song.
Right. It's not a life I want to live. Early 2000s was the time for torture porn, tons of gore for gore, Hostel, Saw, etc. I mean, you're not wrong. I've also seen Hostel, which why did I watch that? Also, which was real gross, was Would You Rather. Oh, horrible, disgusting. Makes me want to vomit. Great. I feel that. Direct sunlight in the dead of summer at 12 p.m. noon outside. I mean, I feel that. I like jump scares. I just don't like gory.
7.
There's no way. Though, I have always said, like, I'm like in the middle of all of my grandparents' grandchildren. Like, my sister's 8 years older than me, and I have cousins that are, like 10 right now. But, so, you know, very far sparse apart. And I was like 9 and 10 with the 18-year-olds watching whatever they were watching. So I was watching shit I should not have been watching at 2 a.m. at grandma's house. So,
yeah.
You know, tortured for life. Absolutely. Legend to Sleep Be Hollow scarred me for life in 3rd grade. You know, that one actually doesn't bother me. I don't know why. It's weird. Because it's creepy.
In the movie?
I'm interested.
I feel like, when did that come out? Is it a play?
I don't know.
I'm over here. I'll Google it.
You Google it.
I swear if I don't have like 20 tabs open at the end of a live chat, I didn't have a live chat.
I mean, fair enough.
Oh, that is cool though.
Haley was in the 3rd grade. We are way off topic right now. I want you all to know that. It's an interesting boat to be in. Grape says, they're alive. Because she said were only. They are. Clicky, clicky, clicky. Nancy Drew scared Lucy. It's a rough life, Lucy. What time is it? How long have we been talking? What world
40 minutes.
It's not long enough. You said you did a poll and there was some other things you wanted to talk about too.
I did a poll. I liked some of the comments. So this was, again, if you read Prologues. Some people said skipping any word of a book is an international crime. But I am curious how many people think that, like, skipping parts of the book is it disrespectful to the author? Like, that's what I'm curious about. At what point is it like the author tried to tell you this story and you purposefully not reading it or skipping it is like not an insult, but like, are you able to review it? Are you able to recommend it in the same way? Like, that's just what I'm curious about.
I think it depends on the amount at which you skipped.
Well, if it was a prologue, do you think that matters? If I was like, I didn't read the prologue. I don't even know that I'd tell someone that, honestly. I might, but
I don't, unless you're complaining about things that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
If you're complaining that, like, you know, there's a theme throughout the book that doesn't make any sense, or you didn't understand something, then yes, you should have read the prologue. And then if you didn't, that's your fault.
Mhm.
If you're complaining about, like, the writing style or the world building or a character that you didn't like, then no, I don't think that those things have one thing to do with the other. Here's a good one.
I know. That's
People reviewing sequels when they haven't read the first book.
That's like, what? This was confusing. No shit.
There
What?
are people that do that?
What do you think about people who DNF books, and are they allowed to review? This is only vaguely related, but I'm curious what you think.
I, again, think it depends on the percentage. I recently tried to read Circe by Madeline Miller. I read about 52% before I DNF'd it. And I did not rate it, but I did leave a review of what didn't work for me. And also because I feel like what didn't work for me was that it's very flowery, which is not my jam, which we'll talk about later when we talk about this month's book. And I also, because I know Greek mythology, like nothing was really happening that I don't already know. So there wasn't really anything going on. And it was boring for me. But I feel like if you like that type of writing, if you like reading history that you already know, and if you like those very, like, in-depth character portrayals of people from history, then you'll probably like it. And so I feel like it's like, I mean, I only read 50% of it and I didn't finish it. And there are people who would just be like, this book is trash, don't read it. I mean, it's a valid opinion, but it's not helping anybody out. Like, a review is meant to help people. A review, to me, if you're posting it publicly, a review is meant to help people know if it's something they should read or not. So if you're just writing, this book is garbage, don't read it, I need you to tell me why it's garbage, because people like different things.
I think it's interesting when you're talking about posting it publicly, because there's a lot of people, the ratio of like ratings versus actual reviews, even on Goodreads, I don't know if it's like the 10% rule or something, but there are way more ratings than there are reviews oftentimes.
Yeah.
And I do often wonder, like, I appreciate someone, even if they only read like 15% of it or like 20% of it, I don't mind if they give it 1 star and say DNF, like, as long as you're explaining what your reason for the rating is, I can either dismiss that or I can take that into account. But I know some people don't like that either. Also, yes, Amanda.
They're wordy sometimes, and I get that too.
Yeah.
That's true too. When I'm reading something that is not typically my jam, like something that is very flowery or something that I'm just not getting into, audiobooks is the way to go because I can't skip it. I have to listen to it. So. A bit of skimming here and there. Still gave it 4 stars. I have no clue what's happening. I mean, we're just talking like single book in general. Fitz, what are you doing? Good to know. I don't know that he knows what he was doing. I should double check because that's the cat that pees on things. So, yeah.
Okay. You check. I will be back.
Converse.
We'll be back. I can't click on anything, but we're going with it. Other things that I thought were interesting. Let's see. People are talking about the prologue being a teaser of the story. People saying it's insane that anyone would see a prologue and think the author didn't put it there for a reason. I wonder if some things are kind of like, readers' interpretations of books will be different sometimes than what the author's intent was. And I know John Green has a really interesting discussion about, like, once it's out of his hands, it's more about the reader's interpretation and their ownership of what they thought they read, and their consumption of it is what matters. So I wonder if the same thing kind of holds true there. I skip the songs and poems, Lord. Oh, I also tend to skip songs and poems.
Why you would choose not to leave a review at all? I don't think there's anything that I've ever not, other than just like stuff that I don't have words for. Like if something's really good, sometimes my review is just I'll come back to this later. And sometimes I don't ever come back to it. But
I know a lot of people just use like Goodreads and different things to catalog their own rating. And if for them, they're like, I'll remember that this was a 5-star or 3-star, whatever, then that's all they'll rate it as, and they won't leave a review. And I know what I did when I first tried Goodreads ages ago was I only put a review in for the books that I'd currently read, but I went back and rated a lot of books that I had read years previous. So that was a reason I sometimes didn't review them. Not Fritz, but Fitz.
spelling it.
Yes.
I in my reading planner, my reading journal, whatever you want to call it.
That's so pretty. Mm-hmm.
That's where I talk about like spoilers, my thoughts on like plot connecting. Like this is because this is private, other than like I share it on the internet as far as like, hey guys, look at this cool thing. But like I don't like post it for people to read. Like these are my own personal thoughts. So these are typically very different from what I leave on Goodreads. But like my Goodreads review is for other people. This is for me. So differences. People just skip over full sections of the text. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I've seen a lot of people who like apparently Goodreads tried to explain what the rating system should be once upon a time. And like 3 was supposed to be like, I liked this book. It was good. But most people, when they see a 3-star rating nowadays, are like, it was trash, or like it was just barely okay kind of thing. So it depends for me. I try and find reviewers that I agree with or I disagree with on a regular basis, and I use them for certain books that I should pick up next.
There are people that I know that we have a complete polar opposite idea of what a good book is. So if they hated something, I will pick it up and be like, this is amazing.
Yes, yes. I'm like, thank you for leaving your review.
Right. There's a lot of people that are leaving Goodreads and going to like Storygraph or Notion or other things. Because I track so many different places, because I use my reading journal, I use Goodreads, I have 3 spreadsheets that I use. I just don't have time to learn another program right now. So continuing to use Goodreads because it's the easiest thing for me to use. I think Prologues from the villain's perspective is probably one of the more common types of prologues, especially one that I think is like an acceptable form of a prologue.
That would be fun. Yeah.
That's because you're the author. Would you rate a book that you just liked okay 3 stars? Because 3 stars for me is like, it was all right. Like I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was fine. It wasn't a waste of my time. It was fine.
It was fine. I enjoyed my time, but it wasn't amazing. It was okay.
It's average. Like literally 3 means like if you're doing a 1 to 5 scale, then 3 is average.
I know, but I'm with Becca sometimes too when I see that. I don't know if it's like we're under the Uber mentality, like that's moved on to everything. Because, Uber, if you get anything less than like a 4.5 or a 4.8 or something crazy, like they kick you off the app as a driver or something like that. So people are like, I have to give everything a 5-star, even if it was just like good, but not great or whatever. So I wonder if that's seeped over into everything we do now. Or like, if it's not a 5, it was terrible.
Well, and I feel like I definitely want to update my rating system because there's other things that I want to add into it. But my rating system is based off of like different categories, and I rate those categories from 1 to 5. And 1 is like I hate it, 2 is I really didn't like it, 3 is it was okay, 4 is I like it, and 5 is I loved it. Like, so I rate different categories based off of those stars and then make an average, which is like the best way I think to find a rating for a book.
I do love your rating system.
Because before it was like I liked it, 5 stars, it was great. But that's not always the case. And like now sometimes, which I do have some emotional 5.25 stars, like because you can get an extra quarter of a point if you make me cry. And there are some books I read this year that I gave 5.25 that probably should have been more like a 4.75, but I don't care because I really enjoyed it.
I saw some of your 5.25, yes. Do I get to know, did you already rate on Goodreads Strange the Dreamer? Because you'd read it before, too.
Yeah, I read it last month. It was in last month's wrap-up. I don't know what I rated it. I have to look it up.
Goodreads, Jessica Williams.
Who's gonna find it first? I rated Strange the Dreamer an even 3 stars.
Okay. From the way you were talking, I figured that's what you gave it.
It's fine. I don't hate it. I lost it, but that is outside of the point. Where's all these people? Laura just got a new journal.
Yay!
3 stars baseline, and then the book needs to screw up to drop to a 2 and do something good to climb to a 4. That's excellent. They clearly hated everything about it and burned it after they read it. I mean, fair.
Yeah, no, and I get that.
Grape says, 3 stars is a great rating for me. A book has to really move me to get a 5. What would you rate Strange the Dreamer?
I probably would have given it like a 3.5. I don't know. Here's my other thing. I've been appreciating giving books space from when I finish them versus my immediate impressions. Because here's what's sticking with me now. I know I should have finished this book earlier, Jessica. Okay.
Ask Kate when she finished the book, guys.
I should have finished this earlier. It's fine. I get it. But I think what really stuck with me is I really appreciated the ending, having not known anything about the prologue. I thought the ending was really cool. I genuinely enjoyed the last 10% of it. It's like stuff finally started happening. And I know you don't like the lyrical writing as much, but I really liked her writing style. I thought it was very pretty, while like I think also the audiobook helped with that. But the fact that nothing happened in the first 90%, where I could have summed up what happened in like 2 bullet points, is a big con. Like I wish that she could have just started the book with something happening. And that's the part that gets me.
I read it knowing that I was reading it with you and going, Kate's going to like this book more than me.
Yeah. I feel like her writing and my appreciation of her writing was a lot similar to how I appreciated N.K. Jemison's writing more than you did. It's prettier, it's flowier, but to me it didn't feel too flowery. I don't know how much of that was because I listened to the audiobook on this one.
It wasn't super flowery. It was more lyrical, which are definitely different styles.
Yeah, which I do love the lyrical ones. That's what gets me. Not flowery, but lyrical.
She finished the book at like 6 o'clock, guys. And we started the live at 6:30. So
here's the thing. Ready to discuss.
Wait, hold on. I'm just because I'm curious now. So I finished a book right before the live show too, as well, also. However, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I've also finished 15 other books between when I read Strange the Dreamer and today.
Yeah.
So
I am. Sometimes I do a good job and finish them ahead of time, but like a lot of the time I remember to do it.
I also think it depends on how much you're struggling with it too, because I had a really hard time with the N.K. Jemisin book that I can't even think of the name of right now. And like I finished that on day of, but then ended up not doing the live stream for reasons, and had to do my own, which was great though, because like I didn't enjoy it, and because I didn't get to do the live show, and I was like, I still want to do it because I still want to talk about it, and getting to talk about it with Cachet made it even better, because I feel like someone who like is a champion for that book versus me who was like, I don't get it. I get it. I just didn't like the delivery system.
And thankfully Becca stepped in, and what actually happened was me and Becca gushed for 2 hours.
Right.
And then you had a more like worthwhile discussion. We were like, it was amazing.
You're done. Check.
Thank you, Katie.
I mean, it's fair. I mean, there are definitely times where like I'm rushing to finish a book before the live, but because I've done it before, like I try to read it. I mean, we've got 2 months. I've read 20 books this year already. I think I can just like, read it and move on.
Yeah.
One of Becca's favorite books of all time.
It's one of mine too. It has to be at least top 10. Like I had to go out and buy, even despite my book buying ban, I had to go out and buy the whole series.
If someone could write a bored person's version of that book series, I would love it. Like I'm bored with all this flowery writing. Can you make it easier for me to digest? Because I like the plot, and I like the what's the word I'm looking for? The morals of the story. Like I really enjoy those. I just don't like the delivery system.
And I think that's a fair criticism. I think that's interesting. So I've been talking to the boyfriend because he loves Brandon Sanderson, and Brandon Sanderson and N.K. Jemisin right now are like the 2 fantasy people. And I'm trying to convince him and his book club to read N.K. Jemisin's The 5th Season. And I'm like, here's the thing. I think both of them are incredible world builders, incredible characters, or they're great at building their characters. And they're fleshed out world. They're amazing. But the writing style is so different that like, I just want to see. I also agree. Again, this is where I'm like, it was lyrical. It wasn't flowery.
Lyrical, not flowery.
It was like, it felt like I was being told the story. It's still my favorite thing because I'm like, it felt like I was around a campfire being told this story by like a master orator or something. Like this person has practiced their craft so much that it just like every sentence flowed into the next one so beautifully. Anyways.
But this is my thing. I accept that it is superior to my taste. Like I accept that I have a trash taste, and so it's like I accept that what she did is amazing. It's just not my taste. I have a trash taste.
No, and I think that's fair too. That's why I'm like, there's Brandon Sanderson and N.K. Jemisin, where it's like, I think stylistically and writing wise, I don't think anyone could dispute that N.K. Jemisin's the better writer, but they're both so good at world building that I think if you prefer the Brandon Sanderson style, that doesn't say anything about who's a better storyteller necessarily, or like one or the other. Like they're both so good. It's just very clearly different. You will have to let me know how you like it.
Let's see.
The worlds are quite different. Yes, okay.
Someone asked, where did it go? Nope. I will find it. Oh, there it is. When's the next book club? Which we're going to go over into talking about Strange the Dreamer, so we should announce the next book before that, because that way people who haven't read Strange the Dreamer and don't want spoilers can leave.
That's a good point. Do we do that every time, or do we tend to wait?
I think we wait.
You're very smart, Jessica. It only took us a year of book club. Because we've been doing it a year now. I think so, because I think we started it in 2020.
Was it?
Yeah, because we've been doing Authortube chats for a while, but I think adding the book club was
Last year.
so, or was it 2 years? No, I think it was only a year. It's been a weird year that honestly, it's like,
who knows?
Well, are you ready for the grand reveal of what we're reading? Shall we turn at the same time?
First, I have to look something up because I can't remember.
Okay. You've read this before? Is that what you're looking up?
No.
You're guessing.
No.
No.
No. No. I thought I had. Okay, anyway. Moving on because I am incorrect. So our next book club, our book will be for March and April.
Yes, so you have 2 months to read it, like Jessica pointed out.
And March and April's live streams will both be on Kate's channel.
Yes. One of them will definitely be talking about Camp NaNoWriMo.
For sure. And one of them will be talking about the book we're going to read, which is, are you ready?
Drum roll.
1, 2, 3, 7. One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus.
Yay!
I think Kate picked this one.
I did. I wanted, like, I've been feeling kind of mystery thriller-esque. I just want some more death, you know? So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I wanted a contemporary-ish and also mystery.
Did you say you wanted more death?
That's what I said.
Okay. Just check.
Yeah.
So
stand by what I said.
Along with us, you can read One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. This has been out for a couple of years, so I imagine I was going to look and see, but
that's what it had, like 25 copies at my library.
2017. So I figure a good few people have probably already read it, or a good few people already have it on their list. It's not like a new release. So
this is what we tend to do so that I can easily access it through my library.
And I could have as well, but I was at the bookstore picking up a pre-order, Lily Manon's Makeup Breakup, and was like, it's here on the shelf, so I might as well just buy it while I'm here.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of a series.
That's what I see. Katie says, if you like it, there is a second one. Mm-hmm. I can't remember what I heard about the second one. I think I heard it might not have been as good as the first, but there's few books that managed to top the first one, so that wouldn't be surprising. What animal is making that noise?
That would be the puppies, but I don't know which one or why it's so close.
Oh.
They get really loud at night, like super loud. I have to I stay in bed as long as possible because Mom retired at the beginning of February. And like the second they hear my door creak open, they just go crazy.
Yeah.
So
congratulations to your mama.
Yeah, she gets to party.
Woo. Is it time to discuss?
We're going to now discuss Strange the Dreamer. We are going to discuss spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled for the book, now is the time where you exit stage left and or right, front, back, center.
Yeah.
Whichever. You can always come back after you've read the book because I do recommend that you read it, even though Kate and I didn't love it.
Feelings. It's
a good book. I liked it. I liked the world building. I liked, because we can talk a little non-spoilery, you know. I liked it. I liked the characters. There was some good plot points. I highly recommend skipping the prologue. You can go back and read it at the end.
Yes. Okay. And as someone who didn't read the prologue, and then read it at the end, I also recommend skipping the prologue. This was a really interesting one because it's so highly rated and I'd heard amazing things from BookTube and like the book community in general that I understand. Part of me understands why it's rated so highly, but also part of me is confused. Because again, the characters were great. The world building was phenomenal, but it definitely felt like, what am I yeah, the vibes were cool. I like, not only was the world building done at like so well, but it was also just a cool world that I was like, but why? But nothing's happening. And that part really got to me the more it continued on. Like I still enjoyed the ride the whole time. And I think that's a testament to the writing and the lyricalness of it that I enjoyed, but nothing happened for the first 90% of the book. Like I don't, what?
I mean, my thing is, and I will say, like, where you just said 20 seconds ago that it's rated really high and you're not really sure that it deserves like necessarily that height.
Yeah.
I noticed, and that I wrote in my journal versus my Goodreads review, is that I felt like there was a lot of head hopping, like a lot of head hopping from character to character. And you had I had a hard time figuring out who was talking and why and when and how. And no one mentions that in their reviews. Like typically if you read a book and there's head hopping going on, people will blast that author for head hopping. But in this, no one mentioned it.
And I'll say I haven't read the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. I do have the books because I bought them forever ago. But I haven't read them. And I know a lot of people came over to Strange the Dreamer from that series because she obviously wrote both. So I think she had a built-in fan base. And it is always interesting for me when I see authors with a built-in fan base and then wondering how legit sometimes their reviews. Legit's in quotes because everyone's entitled to whatever opinion they have, but it's a travelogue, yes. You can sum up the first like time passes, conversations are had, nothing happens, we travel.
Here's my thing was like, so I read the prologue, big mistake. Get to the first chapter, get to like the time jumps and like the world building and trying to figure out what's going on. And I have no clue what's happening. I'm just in it. I'm like, all right, I'll figure out eventually what's going on. I figure out what's happening. I figure out like where we're at, who the people are, what's going on. 2 pages later, point of view change. And I got to figure that shit out all over again. Like just when I felt like I was finally firmly planted in the world and like was like, all right, let's do this. It changed point of view. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
All over again.
Well, and there was a lot of head hopping. And again, I listened on audiobook, which I felt like I was going to call them demon spawn. What felt like the god spawn were distinct characters, but at the same time I like couldn't tell you any of their names because we hopped around so much. So it's like I had an idea for each of them, but like figuring out who was talking when and all this stuff was like a little bit confusing still, where I like it took me a bit to get the context clues and be like, oh yeah, that one did that thing, because it was just so much.
Right, and I liked the main players. Like I liked Laszlo and I liked the god spawn, whatever their names were, Steve, Rain, Water, I don't know what. Yeah. I liked them just fine. The child one, the one that was stuck in child form, was creepy AF.
Minya, I kept thinking, yeah, she was super creepy. She was done so well. I think I had made a comment at some point where I was like, I like her origin story. Which, at what point are we talking spoilers?
Go ahead, spoiler away.
Yo, that made the twist so much better. So this whole time, you're like, you get the origin story, you think she's a little creeper because she's horrifying. And then the twist at the end where she fucking gets them and is like, no, you're more powerful, but I have you now. I have the thing that you want. And like, that sucks to suck. I'm going to use this. I don't care. She's shown how ruthless she is. And then to finally get like this actionable item to like corroborate that was amazing. So I'm Team Minya.
I love that it's like the villain origin story. I love it. It was great.
Yeah.
But also like, and that was like, there really were only like 5 or 6 plot points. And that was one of the best ones. Yeah. And I just, like so little happened that when something like that happened, it was like, wow, that's awesome. I do question like one of the learn English. They talked about how the world, however their world was built, like basically the gods had been making god spawn for a long ass time, but there weren't any like middle-aged grown-up god spawn there. So like what were they doing with them? Because like they had the nursery with all the babies, and then they had the one girl Minya who like they kind of left there so that they wouldn't do whatever with her that they were doing with the other people. What were they doing with them all? Like, I'm sure that's something that we'll figure out in Muse of Nightmares, but
I will admit this is one of those that, because I already knew what the second book was out, what the title was, I had some guesses that who we were going to be following, or like how the next how prominent I didn't think this was going to wrap up, I guess is what I'm saying. And it does not wrap up at all either.
no.
So there are definitely so many questions left unanswered. I think at one point I took a picture because I made my notes along the way. And I was like, there's barely 15% of this book left, which ended up being 2 hours of book, 2.5 hours of book. And I was like, it's turned into a love story. And that's all it was for like hours until the very end. And I was just like trying to make it make sense pace-wise. It's not a book that paces well. It paces so confusingly.
And one of the last notes that I made in my journal was you read this today and I read it 15 books ago, so I don't know anybody's names. The dad, the Muse of Nightmares' father, the savior of
the god killer,
God slayer guy.
Yeah.
He has to grapple with being both a savior and a monster. Two different, like, he's like, yes, I'm a savior and I saved my people from having to live through this thing, but in order to do that, I basically had to kill babies who are half children of people that I know and love, and also my own half child. Yeah. Or my own child, and I guess they're not, you know what I'm saying. And so it's like, I looked at that in the interpretation of like, a lot of us do things that are good for some people but bad for others, and he has that more in your face than what we probably get on a day-to-day basis of figuring out, are you a savior? Are you a monster? I really liked that kind of moral debate.
Yeah, no, it was great. There was actually a lot of, I think it goes back to how much I genuinely enjoyed the world and the characters, which is what makes it so hard to rate for me. It's like, why couldn't something more have happened at the beginning? Because otherwise it would be like a 5-star book for me. I thought it was so good. But yeah, the characters and the way that Laini Taylor would describe the situation and describe what the character was going through and then hit you with a line or two, which made it so clear. I was like, so good. I really enjoyed his character a lot too. And I think I took a quote at some point where Laszlo at the time thought that the god killer guy, he's like, he's a good man and a great man. And then there's a part of the way through the novel where he's like, is he good or great? Like, I don't know. And then as he learns more about the history, and even as he explains to himself, Laszlo explains to himself all that the god killer's been through, he's like, yes, he is a good and a great man, and he's had to deal with all this stuff, but he's still good and great. And I was just like, it was so good.
I mean, you have to do what's right for your people. Like, they're being tortured essentially. So like, you have to stand up for your own people and defend them and protect them. Is slaying an entire nursery of babies part of that? Probably not, but it's debatable.
Well, and that's it debates it really well, because you also get it from Sarai, the Muse of Nightmares. You get it from her point of view, as she's always been, or not as a child, but as she grew older, she's the first one that we see who's on the fence from both hating the humans and also understanding why they did what they did and the nuance of it. Like we learn a lot of the nuance through her.
Because she's the only one that has actual communication with the humans. And
yes, she's the only one that gets the nuance. And so it's done in such a great way that I really enjoyed that. I will say, though, I liked all the bits about, what was it, like Ruby and Feral, who have like some intimacy going on that they weren't expecting. And then there's Sparrow, who liked Feral. And then all of that's really interesting, but ultimately doesn't do anything for the story other than build the world out. So I'm like, I think it was interesting. I'm not saying I didn't like it. It's similar to the rest of the novel. I enjoyed reading it. But I'm also it was
weird that he at some point is like, I'm just gonna have to take all 4 of you or the 3 of you for my wives, because he can't marry Minya because she's a child. And I'm just like, well, you're special. You can't just pick one to procreate with. You're gonna be like, well, since I'm the only guy, I'll just have all 3.
It was such a weird, I appreciate that Sparrow and Ruby came together after and we're talking about, I want to be the only one. I want to be wanted. It was interesting. The whole thing was interesting. It felt like such a weird side tangent. And it expanded the world, but again, nothing happened. That it's
I think the only thing it really did was play on Ruby's ability to start fires and how she doesn't necessarily always have control over it, especially when she doesn't have control of her emotions.
Yeah.
But still, I don't know that it really did a whole lot for the story.
I will also say that Thyon Nero, the golden godson guy thing, the alchemist, he had such a bigger role at the start of the book.
Oh, yeah.
And then basically freaking disappears for whole sections of it. And he finally comes back at the end. And you're like, well, that's cool, I guess. But it was also just I don't know. Again, it was just paced in such a weird way that I was left sort of I guess I thought something else was going to happen with that. I don't know.
Right. I feel like maybe once we've read the second book that we'll understand it better, maybe.
Maybe. I just always think it's hard when it's so clearly this is a first book and doesn't wrap up anything. I think that's a difficult thing for me personally. Even though I liked N.K. Jemison's did that too, and I still liked it. But I felt like more of that wrapped up. I got more plot points, so I feel like I got more story from it. Whereas this one feels like it was so just...
Well, I don't think it wrapped up anything really other than figuring out who they were talking about in the prologue.
Yeah. Yo.
Which is kind of like a police procedural drama. You find someone dies in the prologue, and then as the book progresses, you know who that person is.
But it's so...
And then it happens.
And then yeah. But it was so... I would have been so upset because you learn about her moth abilities so early on.
It's one of the first things you learn about.
One of the first things you learn. You would easily put that together that I would be like...
I did. From the very beginning, I was like, oh, so she's the one that died in the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, for a while, I wondered if because she had people were afraid of her because she looked so much like her mother, and because her mother had a similar ability. I wondered if it was her mother's death, but then they explained that that's not how her mother died. And so I was like, oh, so it is her. For a little bit, I was like, but is it her or her mom? And then you're like, oh, it's her. Cool.
Here's my thing. Because we did the experiment, me not having read the prologue, you don't need the prologue. You don't need it at all. It doesn't give you any additional context that you don't get pretty early on from the first chapter. Because that's when Laszlo, tries to speak the name of the city out, and it dies completely. And he's talking about how now it's just Weep and all this stuff. And then you get the gods or the god spawn, literally 3 chapters later because they change point of view. And it's so if I was going to find out all the stuff that it was trying to allude to in the prologue in 3 chapters, you don't need the prologue.
To me, it was just really weird that it's why did you decide to put that in, knowing that, like, is it meant for us to know that she's gonna die the whole time? Like, is it supposed to build up to something? Because I don't feel like it built up to something. Like,
Well,
it just made me feel like, oh great, she's gonna die, so let's just see how. I mean, is it more because of the shock factor that, like, they bring in her ghost? But I knew that they were gonna do that the second they talked about Minya's ability to control ghosts. I was like, oh, so when she dies, Minya's just gonna take her ghost, it's fine. So it made it feel like there were no stakes whatsoever.
I
None.
wonder if they did that because there were no plot points in the first 80% of the novel. Like, they wanted the promise of a death to be something, because there's really no promises that aren't answered with like a little bit more information later on. Like, you get slow reveals, but not of anything that I was necessarily like, I must know this. It was just like, oh, this is some more information here and here. So I wonder if that's why they did it. I don't know.
I don't know. It just was a really weird choice to me.
Yeah, and no, that is.
But because you don't typically read prologues, and I typically do, and you hadn't read the book yet, and I had, you know, it made sense to use it as an experiment and to use it as a topic. And
it was perfect.
Like, you know.
Also, Hilla says, who else guessed? I don't know that I guessed it that soon. I don't remember when I guessed it, but I was like, this has got to be it. Like, he's definitely Godspawn, right? And like, he's another orphan boy that definitely has powers. And I was just like, it has to be. It's YA. This is it. Although, oh, that's a different thing. Is this YA, Jessica? Like, I don't. Is it?
I mean, I do believe it is technically sold and listed as a YA, but so are Sarah J. Maas's books. So,
well, that's exactly what it felt like, where I was like, he's an adult. They stress that point like pretty early on when what Sarai's in his dreams, or when she's looking down at him, she's like, this is a man. And actually, they even say it before that when they go on the trek, and he's like, he got his muscles and like whatever, he was a man now. And I was like, so is it YA? We're following this guy. And I'm like, I know it's somewhat of a coming of age as he learns like he's Godspawn after all. And that tends to be the like decision point, but it didn't feel YA necessarily to me.
This is my contingent, and like the thing that I continuously say is that I don't feel like teenagers are the only ones who are still finding themselves. Like, I'm 33 and I don't know me yet. So
yeah. Well,
my book could not be a YA. Like, I've lived through some shit. Like, it wouldn't be a YA.
Right. And no, it's confusing. And that's what literally all of my like different murder mysteries that are adult murder mysteries, the first book in them is always a coming of age of sorts in them for these main characters every time, and they're adult books. And I'm just like, I don't understand the classification system here.
The classification system is if it's a fantasy and it's written by a straight cisgendered white dude, it's adult. And if it's not written by a straight cisgendered white dude, it's YA.
Yep. Nope, that makes sense. Got it.
In case you're interested.
Well, and I do wonder if Daughter of Smoke and Bone was YA, and so that's why they were like, we're gonna put this in the same section that she was before, because they're like, it'll sell better that way.
There is a caveat. There is Robin Hobb, who is a woman, who is adult. However, Robin is a gender neutral name, so people did not know that it was a woman in the beginning. FYI.
There you go.
That's the distinction. We've discussed it. I'm here. Like, I'm going to talk about it until the end of time. Why do we rate books? Why do we rate books the way we rate books? Why are they not rated like movies and TVs and video games, where it tells you the youngest age that someone should be in order to enjoy this form of media, this form of art? Why do we put an age cap on it? Why is there a cap on it? You can only enjoy Percy Jackson if you're from the ages of 9 to 12. I guess I didn't enjoy it when I was 30. I'm just saying.
We have all the feelings.
I have a lot of feelings. Sometimes I like to eat cake and have sunshine and rainbows. I just have a lot of feelings. She doesn't even go here. I'm just saying. Like,
Bring out the Mean Girls.
I feel like this is definitely a case of a book that should have been adult.
It should have been. Yeah. Yes, I agree with Sting.
I don't have enough education for that, but maybe one day.
I swear.
I just feel like it's such a missed opportunity. Like everything else has like, PG, G, PG-13.
Well, and everything else has trigger warnings or like warnings of some sort. All the TV shows now are like, by the way, there's a rape scene in this. I would like to know that before I enter a book. Looking at you, all you fantasy written by men in this time period where the women only gets her characterization because she was raped and now she has a vengeance. Like, get out of here. More thoughts.
Somebody was talking about a book recently, and I can't even think of what it was, where like the first scene was just like boobs, describing someone's boobs was the very first sentence. I'm glad I said that while you were drinking your wine. I'm just like, what? Who's like the first sentence of their books? Like, I don't know. Her boobs were. It was probably something stupid, like her breasts were milky white and happy to see me. I don't know. Something stupid.
Have you visited the men writing women subreddit?
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't been on the subreddit because I don't do Reddit, but I've seen like videos of people reacting to it.
So
100%. Yeah. 100%. I've seen that. It's interesting.
Yes, that is a word.
I always laugh about it, like first lines of books, and people do like the first line of a book challenge where someone will read the first line and you have to guess what book it is. I could never do that. The only book I'll ever get is Toni Morrison's Paradise. The only book I know the first sentence of.
I was like, no, you would get this one. I would need to find it. But I'm like, she would know it. Oh, this is going to bother me. Where are you? Book. Boo! Why won't it come flying to me? I called it. Oh.
Okay. I was expecting a book to fly and hit me in the head.
I know. It's fine. I'll just text you what I had imagined happening instead. What's the point of having so many books if I can't find them? Like,
Stieg says, in a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit.
Hold on, Jessica.
Also,
I have faith in you. Yeah, that's true. Oh, I was wrong, Jess. I was so certain. I want you to telepathically guess, because I know you can get this.
I'm ready.
I was sure you could until I read the first sentence, but you'll get it on the second. That would give it away. Everything had gone horribly wrong.
Oh.
You have... What would I pull that you know?
That hurts.
Everything had gone horribly wrong.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. I've heard that a million times, but I don't know what it's from, Regina.
On the spot.
What's
the category?
What's the second line? Does the second line give it completely away?
It does, because it tells you the character name. One of the characters' names. I would even show you the map that's attached, but you would know it. I'll cover up part of the map, actually. You're still going to know it, but... You didn't see the cover, did you?
No. Oh, I do know what that is.
I'm testing your knowledge right now.
It's Witchlands. Truth Witch.
I was like, she'll know. You've only read it a million times and haven't.
No, because I'm thinking, like, I know that it's something where, like...
It was not an immediately obvious first line like I thought it was going to be fair. Like I think that was part of my problem. I was so certain I was going to pull it out and be like, it's going to be so clear. And it wasn't at all.
If it was Safi doing math and
that was literally the
like,
next line was
42.
Yeah. What's Wind Witch line? Excuse me this is not what we're supposed to be doing. Oh, this one has, okay, look at this. Hold on. Wind Witch has a bit of a prologue. She just calls it before, though. And then 1. But there's only 2 pages. No, see, there were advantages to being a dead man. I don't know that you would have.
I might have gotten that one.
Yeah.
It was a bright and cold day in April and the clocks were striking 13. Don't know that one.
I don't either, but it's a great opening line. Juniper, I got Pride and Prejudice. I'm here for it. That's the only one.
Oh. Yeah, that one I would get. You're right.
Yeah.
The Paradise by Toni Morrison, the first line is they shoot the white girl first.
Oh.
And I read that as a senior in high school and like it has stuck with me forever. I wrote a report on it. And so it's like
it's burned into your brain. That's a good first line too.
I read The Great Gatsby in high school and I hated it. So I have no idea what the first line of it is. I would never read it again.
I never had to read that book. I moved around enough that like the required reading was so different everywhere that I missed a lot of the random ones, the important ones. Important. Like I had to reread the same book a lot of the time. Oh, Haley's your girl.
What is her name? JD Ray Reads, I believe. I think that's her channel. They're doing she has like 12,000 subscribers, so like whatever. They're doing a Witchlands a read along for the books leading up to the release in June. So I'm gonna be reading them again.
Yes.
I've only read Blood Witch once though. I've read everything else at least twice. Some of them 3 or 4.
The most recent
one, yeah. I've only read once. In February of 2019 when it came out.
Okay.
It's been a minute. So.
Well, I think, do you have anything else you want to say about Strange the Dreamer? Have we crushed it?
We crushed it.
Crushed it.
I'm going to be completely honest. I'm sitting on a footstool and my butt is so numb right now that
so Jess is done.
I can barely stand to sit here. But literally. So just because you've all made it this long, I feel like you should be rewarded with why we're staring at empty bookshelves. Okay, are you ready? Everybody, don't look. You're going to get nauseous, but we're going to move, okay? This is what the other side of my office looks like currently.
Yes. Look at all the books.
There. There's a couch in there, I promise.
What?
The books and just like boxes of stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And I have no desk.
Correct. I'm excited for when you get it though. When it's all up.
And that's, my friends, is why we're staring at empty bookshelves.
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Thank you all for joining us. I don't know that we have a date for next time because we are horrible people.
We vaguely had a plan. Was it the third?
Third Tuesday.
So maybe the 16th. Unless we push it back, then the 23rd.
Right. Probably we'll go for the 16th. And then that way if something happens, we can go.
We can push back. Yes. So tentatively. And that's
we're
just going to be
trying to do the same day every month tentatively. Because otherwise it's like the 26th of the month and I'm like, Kate, we haven't scheduled a live show yet and we've got 3 days.
Oh no, panic. Yes.
Right. So.
And it will be on my channel. I don't know what
I'm
discussing yet.
Kate's channel. I would tell you that she's linked down below, but she's probably not. This is probably a lie.
It's okay. That's all right.
I'm sure you know who she is by now. So.
Hello.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to find the end broadcast button. Oh, I don't have to use the mouse because I have a touchscreen laptop.
Look at you.
I'm fancy. I don't ever use it, but you know.
Now you can. This is the time.
Now's the time.
Yay.
Okay. Wave bye, everybody. Bye.